Canada's economy has been fairly resilient despite rising interest rates, and the same goes for the US. In fact, if you look at the markets, the S&P 500 is up nearly 20% year to date. The Nasdaq more than 30%. Are there more gains to be had, or is it time to be cautious? Sebastien Mc Mahon is chief strategist at IA Financial Group, and he joins me now with his insights. Hi, Sebastien. Great to have you on.
Hey, great to be here.
So, despite the high interest rates, despite people voicing their concerns about affordability, Sebastian, the economy seems to be pretty resilient. Even I expected there to be some recession or some
Mhm.
sign of a recession by now. Is it doing okay, or are there cracks?
Well, when you look at around the world, the economy clearly is still resilient. We are seeing China, having maybe issues getting growth going. We are seeing maybe some cracks that are clearer in Europe, but Canada and the US, and especially Canada with the demographic sector, we're seeing a very strong economy still. But I would say that it's normal. It's all part of our, the macro framework that we use. It's well known. It's been demonstrated to economic literature that there are long and variable, and I would like to say even unpredictable lags to monetary policy. So, when the central banks they hike interest rates like they've done over the last 16, 17 months, it takes a while for all of this impact to start to show in the data. And if you go back to summer of 2006 and before that the summer of 2000 when the Fed was done hiking, then everything looked well for a while. Some people were saying, well, it's resilient, the economy is strong, it's different this time. But after that, the tough part tends to follow, and we feel that we're just about at the doorstep of seeing these impacts appear.
Okay, so Sebastian, let's talk about credit because
Yeah.
high interest rates typically, we tend to be reactive, businesses tend to be reactive. Are you seeing any signs that this tightening credit cycle is having an impact? And I know we have a chart, so explain what
Yeah.
we're seeing here.
Yeah, we have a chart here. So usually when central banks hike interest rates, it takes few quarters after that for banks to tighten their lending standards, meaning that they're less willing to lend money, or they're less, picky on who they lend money to. So on the chart here, you have two things. You have the gray line, which is the tightening standards from the banks in the US. So when the line is lower, the gray line, that means that banks are less willing to
Mhm.
loan. And the blue line is really the lending activity, the growth year to year. So it's always about growth. The growth in credit is a very important determinant of the business cycle, economic growth. And as you can see here, we're already starting to see a growth in bank loans stagnate. But if you extend the relationship, there's a lead of multiple months between the tightening standards and the actual
Yeah.
lending activity. This is all pointing towards early 2024 as a point where we could start to see lending by banks contract on an annual basis, giving a strong headwind to economic growth. So this is what we mean about the delayed impacts of monetary policy. Yet we still see some resilience, but when we look forward, it's outright contractions and strong headwinds that we're seeing. So 2024 will be the year where likely the impacts will be manifest.
Okay. We have about just over a minute till commercial break. Sebastian, what is driving inflation now? I mean, we see it come down a little bit, but we know it's not really supply bottlenecks.
Mhm.
What's driving it now?
Well, it's still the factors like wage growth. There's been lots of wage hikes that have been negotiated recently in the last year or two. So this is fueling growth with inflation growth. We're seeing still inflation for at the grocery store. So food inflation is still about 8.5%. This has more to do with global factors like climate changes, to be honest, than any domestic factors. So this should be lingering for a while. There's the shelter component too. When the Bank of Canada and the Fed, they hike interest rates that mean that more households have to pay more for their mortgages, interest payments. So that's a cost of living impact. So it's fueling CPI. So all of these impacts are still there. Should be sticky for a while. Inflation, maybe 3.54% by the end of the year. We're expecting a rebound in H2. But if we do have an economy that goes through a slowdown and we have central banks that are resilient in the face of deteriorating economic data,